Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over the jam-packed 11-game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings. And I mean, it is pretty packed. There's a lot of good plays on this slate, a lot of good games to target, a lot of good players. So I am looking forward to it. And there's also a lot of good value options as well due to injuries. So this should be a pretty fun slate, and we'll narrow it down a little bit here. But before we continue, if you guys, as always, could just leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter, ChrisPinell16. And if you're interested in the spreadsheets about every single night for the NBA season, projections, cheat sheet, my pretty much my player pool, my Discord chat, all that good stuff. Links in the description below for my Patreon. I update that all the way up until lock because a lot of things can change throughout the day for DFS and especially for NBA. So, like I said, links available in the description below. And let's get into today's slate. So we're gonna start up top. I'm not gonna talk too much about Trae Young here, but I do think he's an excellent GPP option because I don't really know how many people are actually going to pay $11,200 where you can get James Harden for less, and I always side with James Harden. But this is an elite matchup for Trae Young. I mean, we have a 228.5 point implied over/under for this Atlanta versus Cleveland game, and it's only a 1 point spread, so I do expect a lot of points to be scored here. Both are pretty awful defensively. And Cleveland is 29th versus point guards. And, Trae Young has insane upside every single night. He's going to shoot the ball a ton. I mean, he shot it 30 times versus Brooklyn. He shot it 29 times versus New York, 28 times versus Utah. Shooting volume will never be an issue with Trae Young. It's just he has a little bit of a lower floor, but he also has a very high ceiling. 67 points versus Brooklyn, 50, 61, 50, 46, 39 is a little low, 39 is a little low. So if you paid $11,200 and Trae is not hitting his shots, yeah, you'll be pretty disappointed. But I think he's going to have a pretty good game here versus Cleveland. So you could look his way in GPPs. He's going to shoot the ball a ton, and the guy has a lot of upside. So I think he'd be an okay lower-owned option because I can't expect him to have too much ownership on this slate considering, James Harden's right below him. And I feel more comfortable with James Harden. Not as good of a matchup here versus Sacramento. But, if you're going to give me James Harden at 11K, I'll definitely have some interest. I mean, he's not even the most expensive player on the slate, which is pretty much a mistake there. And we know he has insane upside every single night. 69 points in the last game versus Phoenix, and 51, 53, 59, 84, 80, 52, 57, 47, 78. He has insane upside. He does it all: rebounds, assists, whatever. He stuffs the stat sheet. She's gonna blaze threes the entire game. He shot 19 threes last game versus Phoenix. I love that shooting volume. And when he's hot from three, it's pretty much game over for the faders because if James Harden is hitting his threes, he can very easily score over 80 fantasy points. And this should be a pretty good game for fantasy purposes. We have a 229 point total with a 5.5 point spread. Also owns a 38% usage rate of the season, averaging 1.66 points per minute. And he's going to play huge minutes. He does it every single night. He's averaging about 38 minutes per game, which is extremely high. I believe it's highest in the league right now. The only thing I don't really like about this is that Sacramento is 30th or dead last in pace of play. I hate when teams play slow, but I think it'll be fine here. Houston's second pace of play, and they're going to be the one controlling it, in my opinion. So James Harden, fantastic play if you had the salary at 11K. I just like that he's not the most expensive player on the slate, and that's pretty much a mistake. So I think James Harden's a fantastic play. Karl-Anthony Towns, I have no idea if he's going to play tonight, so I really don't want to waste my time to talk about him, but there is some optimism going around that he will be suiting up tonight, and it's a good matchup versus Golden State. We've seen centers have some pretty good games versus them, and Minnesota, they're third in pace of play, so I don't see a reason why you wouldn't like Karl-Anthony Towns here if he's full go. He got over 1.5 points per minute on the season, close near 30% usage rate, but I honestly don't see a reason to play Karl-Anthony Towns because I can't assume we're going to have the injury news by the time lock rolls around at 7 because this game is played I think at 10 or 10:30. Let me see. It doesn't say. I thought it would say, but because on the DraftKings thing it says 3:30 GMT, and I have no idea what time that is. So I don't know why they're not showing me Eastern time because I'm in Eastern time, but I feel like this game is at 10:30 p.m. Pretty sure. So I don't think we're gonna get the injury news, and I really don't see a reason to risk it with Karl-Anthony Towns because there's so many other good options on this slate. So probably gonna be passing myself whether he's playing or not, but the guy's an elite talent. Let's see, just going in the list. So I just got news that Joel Embiid is questionable with an illness, and he did not go around shoot around. So we're gonna have to monitor that situation. Now, so if he's out, you could look at Tobias Harris, you could look at Al Horford, Ben Simmons would all get bumps. Not the greatest matchups versus Detroit, but Again, I have no idea if he's going to play or not, so again, I can't really sit here and talk too much about it, but just know those guys would get bumps, and obviously we couldn't play Embiid if he happens to be out. But Bradley Beal, he comes in at 9,300. I think he's a pretty strong option tonight. So the next Wizards game should be a pretty hot one to target, as we have only a 4-point spread and a 230 over-under. Another thing, there's a lot of injuries and just people being out on this Wizards lineup. He got the little suspension for interacting with a fan who just wanted a Frosty. And Davis Bertans is out, Rui Hachimura's out, Thomas Bryant's out, Mo Wagner's out. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but pretty much the entire starting lineup is out for the Wizards beside Bradley Beal, so he is going to have to carry the team here. And he's been very good recently too. 60 points, 57, 45, 58, 56. So he's been very good. I like that. He's been scoring a ton of points. He's been doing it all. Rebounds, assists, you name it. He's been very busy in the stat sheet, and he's going to have to do that again versus New York for the Wizards to actually stay in this game. And I definitely think it's possible. And with all these guys listed out, I ran the numbers for Washington. Beal has a 38% usage rate and is averaging over 1.3 points per minute. So, I mean, I think he's a pretty solid player at 9,300 given all the injuries on this lineup. Now, New York isn't a dumpster fire on defense, and they actually rank 11th versus guards, but I think Bradley Beal is going to be fine. Last matchup versus Philly, they're, I believe, number 1 versus opposing shooting guards. Still at 60 fantasy points. I really don't care about the matchup, but it comes to Bradley Beal. The shooting volume is going to be there. The guy's a good player, and I just don't see a reason why we don't like Bradley Beal tonight. He doesn't break the bank either. And Washington, it's not a good pace matchup for Washington, as New York is 25th in pace of play. But these Washington games are always played pretty fast because Washington plays so fast. They're so bad defensively. So I have no concern there. And Vegas doesn't either with a 230 point over under. So Bradley Beal, I think he's a pretty solid option tonight. If you want to make him your spend up, I have no problem at all with that. More of a GPP option, you could look at Jokic here. He comes in at 9,100, and he's been awesome after a slow start. Well, last game versus Lakers wasn't good. I believe that was last night. Only saw 27 minutes, so I didn't get a full complement of minutes. But before that, 58, 51, 50, 70, 44, 43, 47, 56. The guy has been great, playing 30-plus minutes a night. And this is a nice fast-paced matchup versus Phoenix, who is 8th in pace to play, while Denver is 27th. So I always like getting guys in pace up spots, and it's also a good matchup individually, as Phoenix is 23rd versus opposing centers this season, and he's got triple double upside every single night. He got one versus Minnesota, 10 boards, 10 assists, 22 points. He pretty much flirts with it every single night, and then he had one versus OKC as well. So Nikola Jokic, he's an interesting GPP option. I can't see a lot of people going to him tonight just because there's a lot of other players that we tend to play more than Jokic, but do think he would be on my GPP radar for sure. Russell Westbrook, if you want to play him, it's fine. Decent matchup versus Sacramento. It's just I just don't see myself really playing Russell Westbrook tonight because there's a lot of good options in this low 8, 7K, 6K range. So I feel like I'll be a little. I feel like there's a low chance I'd have Russell Westbrook on my roster, but the guy's been great, 56, 60, 53. But I just don't really see myself playing him tonight, and I'd rather play James Harden for 11K. So probably gonna pass on Westbrook. Simmons, he'd get a bump if Embiid's out. I know the numbers actually really don't suggest he gets much of a bump, but it still helps that Embiid would be out. But Brandon Ingram, I like Brandon Ingram quite a bit tonight at 8,400. So this is my favorite game of the night pretty much, just for fantasy purposes. Well, I guess that Washington game's pretty close, but those are my two favorite games. Washington, New York, New Orleans, and Portland. I think there's going to be a lot of good fantasy assets in these games. And this one we have also a 230 point over-under, which I do like that. And we have a 6-point spread, so that's not too bad. We have some very bad defenses in this game. New Orleans is 5th in fantasy points allowed per game, and Portland is 6th. So there should be a lot of points scored, and it should be fast-paced as well, as the Pelicans are 4th in pace of play, and Portland is 12th. And Brandon Ingram, he's one of the more solid fantasy options on every single night. He's going to play big minutes, and he's pretty much a safe bet for 40 or so points every single night with the upside of more. Last game versus Golden State, 37 points, which isn't great, but then 56 versus Minnie, 42, 39, 39, 40, 45. A couple of bad games mixed in there, but I know the one game he got hurt. I don't remember exactly which game that was. I want to say it was versus Phoenix. Pretty sure it was versus Phoenix. He still ended up getting 30 minutes, but Brandon Ingram, he's very solid play, and he's got a near 30% usage rate this season, averaging 1.3 points per minute. And Portland does rank 22nd versus small forwards, so I think this is a pretty fantastic spot here, and I want a lot of my exposure in my lineups in this game. I love a lot of players in this game, so we're going to talk about a lot of them, but definitely think this is the top game stack of the night, with the Wizards being right there as well. So I do like Brandon Ingram. I think he's a safe bet for 40 points. Andrew Wiggins, obviously he'd be a fine play if Karl Anthony Towns is out, but again, I have no idea. With Damian Lillard, he's one of my top plays on the entire slate. Really like him a lot tonight, and it's just due to the fact that New Orleans is awful defensively, and they're straight trash when it comes to opposing point guards. They rank dead last, 30th versus them. And Lillard's been on a little hot stretch here, 61 points, 51 points, 47 points. And like I said, we have a high total here. It's a fast-paced game, awful defenses. And Melo is also questionable, and I prefer if Melo is out because obviously Melo can cap his upside if he's having a good scoring night. So I do hope he's out, but we won't know until later because this is it starts at 10 o'clock. But even if he's in, he's still cheap, and I actually do have Melo projected to be in right now just on my projections, and Lillard still grades out as a pretty good play. So I think Lillard's one of the top plays of the night. 28% usage rate, 1.26 points per minute. Love the matchup. A little bit too cheap here. Price came down for some reason. So gotta like Damian Lillard a lot here in a great matchup versus New Orleans. I think he'll be one of the more popular plays of the entire night. Hassan Whiteside just getting more exposure to this game. He's an excellent. Well, actually, I think I skipped someone I'm talking about. Yeah, Vucevic. Yeah, we'll talk about him first, but I also like Whiteside. We'll talk about him in a second. So Nikola Vucevic, I think he's a very, very good play tonight. I'm not sure how much ownership he'll get because I think Wizards game's going to be very popular, and so is this Portland game. So maybe he'll get a little bit overlooked, but I think this is a fantastic matchup for Vucevic here, and he's only 8.2K, so I really like the price we get with him as well. And he's coming off a monster game. We're at 57 points versus Portland, and we get an even better matchup here versus the Bulls. They rank dead last, 30th versus centers, and are awful at rebounding, and Vuce should have an easy 20-point double-double here. Got a 25% usage rate on the season, 1.3 points per minute. I think Vucevic is an excellent play tonight, someone I definitely want to get in my lineups. Hassan Whiteside again. If you can go double center with these guys, Hassan Whiteside and Nikola Vucevic, I think you're locking up locking up pretty much 100-point upside here. I think they can both smash. Love Hassan Whiteside tonight, and I'm liking that there's a lot of good mid-range plays. Ingram, Lillard, Vucevic, Whiteside. There's some more too. So I might not even have to spend up for a guy like James Harden tonight. Might just go straight mid-range because I think a lot of these guys are in great spots. So we'll have to see. But love Hassan Whiteside here, and there's no reason for his price to have came down. So he had a 63-point outing where he had 22 boards, 16 points versus Minnesota. So then what do? They drop his price 500 because that just makes a lot of sense. And he's grading out as one of the best point per dollar options at 7,900. So that just goes to show that this is a pretty bad price for Hassan Whiteside, and I do think he smashes here. And dude's been a stud. He's playing big minutes too. Like earlier in the season, he's usually getting about less than 30 minutes, which was a concern. But now 38 minutes versus Minnesota, 33, 33, 31. These minutes have not been an issue. 35 blowout versus New York, but he's going to get 30-plus minutes, so I do like that quite a bit because he's very good on a point-per-minute basis, 1.3 points per minute. This is my favorite game of the night right now, so gotta love Whiteside. I think he's got a very high ceiling tonight. So definitely gonna consider him to make my main lineup as of right now. Drew Holiday, not a lot of interest versus. I like the game obviously, but he'll probably get you 35-plus points, but 7,800, it's not something I really want to play tonight. D'Angelo Russell, I'd rather play D'Angelo Russell at 7,500. He's got over a 30% usage rate. Minnesota's third in pace of play, so I like the pace-up spot for Golden State here. And they do rank 23rd versus opposing point guards, and he's going to play 30-plus minutes. He's had 45 and 43 fantasy points the past 2 games. He's going to shoot a lot of shots here, probably 20-plus shots. He's going to shoot a lot of threes, shot 12 three-pointers the past 2 games each. He's averaging 1.2 points per minute on the season. I think D'Angelo Russell's a pretty good play at 7,500. He seems a little bit too cheap there for his expected role. You'd also look at Kevin Love. He comes in at 7,400. Don't hate him either. And he's been pretty good. 41 points and 50 points the past 2 games. And when the games are close, he typically plays about 30 minutes per game. Probably not going to see 35-plus minutes, but this is a tight spread, so they actually might have him go out there for close to 35 minutes. And if he does, he's going to become an excellent point per dollar option. And he's averaging 1.2 points per minute on the season, and Atlanta is dead last, 30th versus power forwards. This game should be pretty back and forth. It's only a 1-point spread, 28.5-point team total, or over-under. So I think Kevin Love can have a pretty good game here. It wouldn't surprise me if he got near 50 points again. So Kevin Love, someone to have on your radar. And I think a pretty nice GPP stack might be going with someone like Kevin Love, Trae Young, and you can go Jordan Clarkson, Jabari Parker, something like that. I think that's a pretty decent GPP stack tonight. So I don't know how much exposure that game's actually going to get because there's some other good games on this slate. Tobias Harris, again, he'd become pretty interesting. It's also, he was on Detroit, so it could be a little revenge spot versus Detroit. But again, I don't know if Joel Embiid's actually going to end up playing or not. No idea. Malcolm Brogdon seems a little bit cheap, and he's going to grade out as a good point per dollar option, but the guy's been pretty darn bad recently. 29 points, 31, 24. Pretty rough. Then he had 2 good games, 47, 48, but I don't see myself playing Brogdon tonight, but he is a pretty good point per dollar option at 7K. Going to grade out as such, but I just don't really see myself playing too much Malcolm Brogdon. Julius Randle, I think he's a pretty good play tonight, coming in at 6,700, going up against Washington. Pace-up spot versus Washington. They're fifth in pace-up play. They really don't have much big men at this point. 230 total, and it's a tight spread. And Washington is second worst defensive team right now for fantasy points given up, and they're 26th versus centers. And Julius Randle has been over a point per minute this season, 26% usage rate. Not a core play for me, but if you have 6,700 left in your lineup, I think Julius Randle is just fine. I think you get you 35-plus points here in a good matchup versus Washington. Let's see, scrolling down some more. CJ McCollum, I think he's one of the top plays on the entire slate. The guy's been great recently. 42 points, 50, 43, 50. Again, it would help if Carmelo Anthony's out. Even if Carmelo Anthony is in, I still think he's a pretty solid play. I just want exposure to this game. And for some reason, he's doing good, so they drop his price. Makes no sense, but can't complain. I think CJ McCollum's an excellent play tonight. Going to see near 40 minutes in this game. Great matchup. No reason not to like McCollum. Let's see, Al Horford, again, he would get a bump if Joel Embiid is out, but again, we don't really know if he's going to be out yet. Carmelo Anthony, we don't know if he's going to be in or not. Let's see. Just keep scrolling. Jonathan Isaac, power forwards versus Chicago. They're ranked 29th versus power forwards. I wouldn't mind using him, but he's been pretty hit or miss. I know the recent few games have been pretty awful, but then I think he had a 40-point game mixed in there as well. But really don't see myself playing Jonathan Isaac on this slate. Let's see. Where's Derek Favors? I don't want to talk about Derek Favors. I forget his price. So he's 5,200. I thought he was 5,700. So I like him even more now. So I like the price on Derek Favors, and I think he's grading out as a very good point per dollar option on tonight's slate, and it's just really getting good exposure. Just getting exposure to this game. Minutes were up last game where he saw 27 minutes, so I do like that, and I have him for about 27, 28 minutes tonight, and he's been over a point per minute this season, 1.11 points per minute. This is an elite matchup versus Portland down low, who is bottom 3 versus centers. He's also power forward eligible as well, so he's a little flexible as well, so easier to fit in. And if you want to go with the Whiteside, Vucevic, and Favors route tonight, I think that's an excellent way to not start your lineups, but I think those are 3 excellent options, and they can easily fit them in your lineups, and they're pretty affordable given their upside. So Favors, I think he has 30-point upside. Whiteside's got 60-point upside, and Vucevic's got 60-point upside as well. So I really like these 3 guys tonight, 3 big men. So Derek Favors, good matchup. I like it getting exposure to this game. I think he can get you a cheap double-double. Let's see, scrolling down some more. Let's see. Alonzo had a decent game last time out. I just don't really see myself playing him. Troy Brown, he'd become interesting. With all the guys off the court, I mean, Bertans is out. Bertans is out. IT's out. Bryant's out. Ruiz is out. Wagner's out. When all those guys are off the court, he has a 20% usage rate and a 1.15 points per minute, which is actually not too bad. So 4,800, don't hate Troy Brown. Did see 30 minutes last game, 25 fantasy points. He would be somewhat interesting tonight. Don't hate him as a lineup filler. Let's see. Aaron Baines, he's cheap. You should see about 30 minutes tonight. Don't love the matchup versus Denver, though, but he's pretty good on a point-per-minute basis. Gorgie Deng, if Towns happens to be out, you could look at him as a nice value. He had 41 points in the last game, 12 rebounds, 15 points in 36 minutes. Good matchup versus Portland. Is he going to do that again? I don't know. It seems like pretty much of a ceiling game, but 4,600 is still a pretty nice price. So if we get early news on Towns being out, you could look Gorgie Deng's way. I don't hate the idea of that. But one of the top value plays on the entire slate is Ish Smith here at 4,500. And he grades out very well. I think he grades out as like an 8x play for me right now. I think he's a fantastic spot. He should see about 35 minutes tonight. New York is 21st versus point guards. There's just so many injuries on this team. There's a lot of usage to go around. So Ish Smith, he's going to play huge minutes here. I think he gets you 30-plus points at 4,500. And I think you just call it a day and lock him in for cash games. And really just GPPs. He's the top value play on the slate as of right now. And you could also look at Shabazz Napier. He comes in at 3,400, I think. If I can find, 3,400. Went up against Golden State, and he actually got the start the last game. And he saw 30 minutes versus Portland, and he did great. 35 fantasy points, 18 points, 3 steals, 4 assists, 4 boards. Also had a 26% usage rate in that game. And now assuming he gets to start again, he looks a good matchup versus Golden State, who is 26th versus opposing point guards, and he's been about a point per minute this season. So I think Shabazz Napier is a pretty solid play on this slate if you're looking for value. And you could also look at, so I don't know how to say this guy's name. I remember the one game I was watching, and he popped in randomly because I think Jan Mahimi got 2 quick fouls. So this guy pops in. I don't even think he was on the DK slate on that slate. But he saw 28 minutes, and then last game he saw 22 minutes, and there's just so many injuries on this team. I believe they just called him AP, Passionix, I think, something like that. But if he sees 20 plus minutes, he might be an okay play at 3,500. Not a terrible matchup versus New York, but again, something to keep on your radar just because there's so many injuries on the Wizards right now. Should see about 20 plus minutes. I don't absolutely hate it. You could also look at Admiral Schofield at 3,500. He's actually grading out as a pretty good value play as of right now. I believe I have him projected for over 30 minutes. Is he good on a point per minute basis? I wouldn't say that. But again, just cheap exposure to this game. And if he's going to see big minutes at 3,500, you're definitely going to become in play, especially if you're on the Wizards, because these games usually tend to be really good, high-scoring games for fantasy purposes. So you could look at Schofield as well and just look at all these cheap options for the Wizards. But I believe that's going to be it. I feel like this was a long video because there was a lot of guys to talk about. This is a jam-packed slate, so I am looking forward to it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you with that. Hope this video was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPanel16. If you're interested in the spreadsheet about every single night with projections, all that good stuff. My Discord chat, you can bug me in there as much as you want. Links follow in the description below for my Patreon, and I'll see you guys in the next video.